So there was news that broke last night that somebody was in to buy Manchester United, and we discussed it earlier in my live stream today that actually the Glazers could completely sell Manchester United to Qatar, the UAE, Saudi, anyone behind Sir Jim Ratcliffe's back. But this has only come out from a Saudi source, so we're all a little bit skeptical. It's been nearly 24 hours. It's not been denied, these rumours. Ornstein and Romano have not come out and said these rumours are not true, which normally happens a few hours after rumours. And in fact, Manchester United sources like Chris Wheeler and other sources are coming out and confirming there's some kind of talks going on to potentially permanently sell Manchester United to UAE Billionaires behind Sir Jim Ratcliffe's back. I mean, this is crazy, guys. This is big news. This is huge news. So we're going to dive into that. We've also got updates on a new deal for Maguire and, of course, Sen Lamens to start the next game. So hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another Manchester United 10-minute roundup, where we're going to round all the latest Manchester United news up into a 10-minute video for you guys, so you're right up to date within 10 minutes. I do apologise if it's echoey. I do apologise if the audio isn't the best. Again, I'm not at home while filming, so a little bit of a different setup. I haven't got my mic and stuff with me, but this will be sorted by the end of the week. Let's dive into it. Major breaking. A consortium based in the UAE is considering making an offer to the Glazer family, who would demand in excess of $5 billion to sell Manchester United, and have already approached some ex-United players about coming on board as ambassadors. So this is big news, because not only does it come out from a Saudi source, it's now coming out from Chris Wheeler, which means there's another source of information coming out with the story that is Manchester United based, that is UK based. So there is actually some truth to the story. Now, things to remember: considered making an offer. You know, are they using Manchester United for a bit of PR, a bit of clicks, a bit of attention? Or are they actually going to make an offer in excess of $5 billion? That's a lot of money. Manchester United aren't doing particularly well in the league. There is a few things to consider. Considering making an offer in excess of $5 billion. Apparently, I read somewhere that it's a $5.2 billion takeover is what the Glazers want. And they're talking to ex-players about being ambassadors. I don't really, personally, maybe people disagree with me, I don't get this obsession with ex-players. Okay, yeah, the ex-players were great. They won this, they won that. But I don't get this obsession of, let's get Gary Neville on board. Let's get Rio Ferdinand on board. Let's get Patrice Evra on board. You know, I think football changes personally. So that was the first thing he said. But this was the second thing. And this is big. Jim Ratcliffe's deal to buy some shares of United included a drag-along clause that took effect this August, enabling the Glazers to open talks with potential investors without Ratcliffe's knowledge and force him to sell his shares. Mate, Ratcliffe be fuming. Ratcliffe be fuming if he put all this investment in and they're like, yeah, adios, go away. And do you know what's mad though? The Glazers could have played Ratcliffe here. First of all, if you watched my live stream earlier today, we spoke about this, there being a clause August 13th that meant if the Glazers wanted to sell Manchester United fully, they could, and Ratcliffe would have no control over that unless he wanted to buy the remainder of the shares. And he's been offered a price to buy the remainder of the shares for. But we spoke about it in my live stream earlier. The Glazers put Man United up for sale because they needed money. They didn't have the money to put into the stadium to do this and that. They didn't have the money to invest into Carrington to do this and do that. The Glazers didn't have the money to, unless they used their own money, to do what needed to be done at Manchester United, because they'd run the club so badly for 17 years, because they ignored everything, because we were not very sustainable off the pitch. Manchester United weren't in the best financial situation. Whether you like Jim Ratcliffe or not, I wanted a full sale. I didn't want Jim Ratcliffe. I'm not the biggest fan of Ineos, but they did invest money into United. They've got a really good thing at Carrington going on. They're putting money into United, they're trying to put structure into United, and while things aren't great at the moment, like Jim Ratcliffe generally is, I think, trying. And now he could have done all this, help the Glazers out, because, you know, taking all the blame the last 2 years for why we've been bad on the pitch, also helping the Glazers out financially, for the Glazers to go, thanks, boom, now F off, we're going to sell to the UAE, which is a big kick in the teeth for someone like Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Like, you can't lie. I mean, that's classic Glazers, but, you know, if they can, if they want to, go behind Ineos is back and say, look, we're talking to the UAE. Sorry you didn't know about this, but we want to sell the club. And it's up to Ratcliffe if he wants to buy the club, or, you know, could he get outmatched by the UAE? Of course, with these UAE rumours we found with Qatar in the past, Saudi links in the past, that sometimes Middle Eastern based billionaires like to be linked to Manchester United to get a bit of the attention, to get a bit of the PR. So you've also got to bear that in mind. Will they actually make a bid is the big thing. Hopefully, it'd be nice to have a full sale. I know there's obviously question marks around, sort of sports washing and billionaire Middle Eastern owners. And obviously I know the controversy around that, and I get why people would not want that. I mean, I'm at a point where I just dislike the Glazers so much that I just personally want a full sale, but I can understand why some people wouldn't be the biggest fan of this. But I'm just like anything to get the Glazers gone, honestly. But the guy that broke this story yesterday did come out and say this. My yesterday's post about Manchester United's potential sale meant one thing. The club is in advanced negotiation phase with new investors. Just to clarify, I'm not the investor, nor are they from my nation. I'm posting this as a fan who wishes the deal to happen, though it might not necessarily happen. So he's just clarifying, look, my post yesterday that, there's some good news around United and someone's in advanced talks with Man United is about the UAE. I'm not saying that, Man United, UAE is going to buy Man United. I'm just saying as a fan, I'd like this to happen, and there's talks going on, and there's advanced talks going on. And he's saying the group that he was talking about investing in United was the UAE. That has also now been confirmed by TalkSport and Chris Wheeler. So multiple sources coming out and confirming, there was conversations between Man United and the UAE. Apparently advanced talks. I feel like with Man United being on sort of the stock market and it being public traded club, that I feel like if there was advanced talks with the UAE, things are going to have to come out. But yeah, this is obviously big news coming in, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. So, of course, let me know your thoughts on these news and stories down below, but I want to get into a few other talking points because Ben Jacobs was on the United stand today and he spoke about a few things. He said that we have scouted a young forward from Levante in Etta Young. He mentioned a couple of interesting things. So make sure you go check out the United stands video of Ben Jacobs to know about everything he mentioned. But a few of the other things he mentioned was that Sen Lemens is expected to start at Anfield and beyond that and get a run of games. I mean, with his performance versus Sunderland being so good and with Baindir not exactly being an amazing goalkeeper, I feel like it's common sense to assume that Lamens will start. If we had prime Alisson or prime Buffon in goal, you wouldn't expect Lamens to start. But it's Lamens versus Baindir. I'm not trying to be mean about Baindir, but he isn't good. Onana's so bad that we are happy with Baindir because Onana was so bad. But I really don't think Baindir is better than Onana. So Lamens, we were talking about Lamens' debut as if it was a 10 out of 10. Lamens' debut was a 7 out of 10 performance. But because we're not even used to goalkeepers claiming or making basic saves, Lamens' debut felt like a 10 out of 10 because we've seen a goalkeeper make 2 claims. And when he made a save, instead of pushing it back into the danger zone for the opposition to tap in, he pushed it away. So there's that crazy aspect of with Lamens' debut, it just felt like this 10 out of 10. But Ben Jacobs did go on the United stand to say that Sen Lemens is expected to start Anfield. And also Ben Jacobs mentioned on the United stand today, because he was asked about, is Sir Jim really going to give Amorim 3 years? He said, look, a poor run of results can change anything. And to look 3 years ahead instead of 3 games ahead is very risky. I think Ben Jacobs is saying what we all think is Ineos want to give Amorim 3 years, but let's be honest, if we're 17th at Christmas place and we're playing really badly and we're in a relegation battle, they're not going to give Amorim 3 years. They want to see progress. If they see progress, even if it's 8th place, and 8th place isn't the best finish, but it's progress from 15th, they'll probably give him another year. But if it's 14th, they're probably not. I think there's going to be elements of that involved. And last but not least, there's been a lot of talk about Maguire potentially leaving. We actually linked to Mark Gahey earlier today, which would be nice, but something tells me we're not going to get Mark Gahey. But I think Maguire is going to stay another year or two, but on a reduced salary, because Manchester United are in talks with Maguire a new deal because his deal runs out in June. And I think Man United are happy for Maguire to stay as long as he reduces his salary. He's on nearly 200k a week. United do not want to play Maguire nearly 200k a week, but if he goes down to like 120, Man United might be happy for him to stay for another year or two to offer that experience, especially with Amorim playing a back 3 and we've lost Lindelof and Evans and didn't bring in a centre back. For depth, we probably need another option there at centre back, but you don't want your depth option to be on 190k a week. So fully get that. Anyway, thank you for watching today's video. I will be back tomorrow morning with a live stream. I might talk about the Gahey news and other stuff then tomorrow. See if we get any more updates on the Manchester United takeover. It'll be interesting to see if Romano Ornstein add to that. Again, I'm going to say this now. The Glazers could be selling Man United to UAE. behind Ratcliffe's back. There could be a bid in, and there's speculation about it, but I believe it when I see it. I'm skeptical. You know me, I don't believe a lot of the rumours of, you know, Middle Eastern clubs buying United because of the whole Qatar scenario, how Qatar never brought us. So I'm always skeptical with that, but it'll be interesting to see what news comes out in the next few days and if it gets debunked. Thank you for watching. Bye.